Well, biologists are baffled at what is killing birds across several states in the country, including Ohio.
Several birds across central Ohio, like this one, are dying for unknown reasons, an unknown disease.
You may have noticed, have you seen any birds around that have been dying? Wildlife officials say it's become a big problem. Mysterious deaths of birds all over, including right here in Pennsylvania and Delaware. So many of our counties, people are finding these dead birds in 27 different counties just in Pennsylvania.
Did you feel it this morning? Some strong shaking just after 9 a.m. felt south of Compton through Huntington Beach. Bet you thought it was an earthquake. Well, I didn't feel it, but our local earthquake expert, Dr. Lucy Jones, says if you thought it was an earthquake, you would be wrong. She tweeted this. People have been asking about the earthquake, in quotes, in LA about 9:20 this morning. Many people report feeling it, but the seismograms clearly show the earth was not moving, only the air. So she says it was a sonic boom.
Well, the storms, which have caused so much devastation, are part of a weather system which first caused flash flooding in the UK earlier this week. From America to Europe and Russia, extreme weather is breaking records.
There was so little time to run, people tell us. Look at the force of this flood.
The region has seen record high rainfall over the past 24 hours.
Oh my God! What's this here?
Towns and villages across Western Germany have been battered. Houses, businesses, livelihoods destroyed in a matter of hours. Thousands of people left homeless across this region.
Oh my God.
Heavy rain. Flash floods. Extraordinary results. Parts of the capital experienced torrential downpours yesterday. In northwest London, water cascaded from Hampstead Heath onto nearby Finchley Road. Cars were stranded under the Westway, the road which leads out of the city.
These are the worst floods to hit this part of Western Germany in living memory.
This fire is raging out of control in southern Oregon as millions of people across the western United States are hit by another round of scorching temperatures.
I'm on the west side.
With the temperature in the town of Stovepipe Wells in California not falling below 42 degrees overnight, the highest daily minimum ever recorded in the Northern Hemisphere.
We've seen heat waves, right across the world, in fact, droughts in one location. And because they're all so much more intense, we can see that the atmosphere is energetic and possibly more energetic than we're predicting it in our climate models. And that's the thing that is really worrying.
Tonight in Oregon, the largest wildfire in the country exploding in size. The fire in Oregon, just one of 70 wildfires raging across 12 states.
The Bootleg fire is now 7 times the size of San Francisco.
Flash flooding is threatening millions of people. Just look at Newark, New Jersey today after storms rolled through there. And the West cannot catch a break.
The Tamarack fire in Northern California grew exponentially overnight.
Smoke from that fire in Oregon now clouding the skies over Utah. Extreme conditions leading to extreme concern.
Pushing these fires are back-to-back heat waves. This one is the 4th in 5 weeks.
And devastating the coastline with hundreds of millions of mussels literally cooked alive. An event so extreme that with more than twice as much scorched earth compared to this same time last year, tonight a record already on track to be broken.
Massive amounts of dead fish are washing ashore all across Tampa Bay. Beaches are closed. Crews are racing to clean up the smelly, decaying bodies or fish. Local experts say it's early in the season to see concentrations of red tide this high.
The images here are astonishing. Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dead fish floating in the water.
These massive fish kills continue to be a major problem in the Bay Area.
The city says the massive amounts of dead fish started washing up in St. Pete waterways about 10 days ago. But emergency officials say in the last 24 hours, they've cleaned up more dead fish than in the past week.
Dead fish littering the shorelines across Tampa Bay.
I've been coming here for 10 years. I mean, this is the worst it's ever been.
Bait fish, sport fish, stingrays, even dolphins and manatees, all killed by red tide and piling up.
Farming families who have thrived here for generations are now worried about the future.
This used to be alive. Now there's nothing. Most of the mussels around here now are all gone. My clams, you can see the sand dollars and stuff, are all dead.
The mass die-off illustrates the impact of climate change here and now.
We knew the heat might have been bad, but we weren't expecting to see what we saw, or what we are seeing.
And Western Canada's recent record-breaking heat may be a harbinger of things to come.
You know, you've said recently that these disasters have you wondering if the climate models on which we've all been relying are wrong. What did you mean by that?
You know, I think if you described to me what's going on now a few months ago, I would have said you're crazy.
Just a few months ago.
It sounds like a dystopian sci-fi novel.
The climate crisis, my friends, is the test of our times. And while some may still believe it is unfolding in slow motion, no, this test is now as acute and as existential as any previous one.
Record-breaking rainfall has caused severe flooding in parts of central China. More than 200,000 people in Hunan province have been evacuated to shelters.
Weather forecasters say it's the heaviest rainfall the region has experienced in 1,000 years.
This is what happens when the amount of rain that usually falls over the course of an entire year pours down within days.
Throughout Hunan province, streets have become surging brown rivers, swallowing traffic in their wake.
Many struggled to get out of the subway system themselves and back onto higher ground.
Images of passengers stuck inside underground train carriages with the water rising around them have shocked a country used to safe mass transport.
The deluge took the city and these commuters by surprise.
Its subway system now an underground river. Commuters standing for air.
When the system was flooded at a frightening speed. China's leader, Xi Jinping, has described the situation as extremely severe. A year's worth of rain has fallen in the region within days.
More than a dozen cities in the central part of China affected, with Hunan's population close to 100 million.
On ground level, dramatic video shows a group of people attempting a rescue before the ground gives way beneath them. Across this city of 12 million, the rising floodwaters turn streets into raging rivers, trapping drivers in their cars and residents.
This is a rainy time of year in China and floods are an annual occurrence. But it's the record-breaking nature of this rainfall which has people worried, and these extreme weather events seem to be happening much more frequently.
When heat waves hit one of the world's coldest regions, you know something is not right. This is Siberia. 20 towns in the region are on fire.
Now, this is an area of land we're talking about here which is almost as big as the whole of Wales. More than 1.5 million hectares of land are burning after an unprecedented heat wave hit Siberia. In less than 2 months, the fires have spewed out around 150 megatons of carbon dioxide.
Such situations repeat themselves almost every year. We hear similar stories, and it's very hard to understand, what's the nature of these fires. I mean, and why they are repeating themselves almost every year.
As we speak, thousands of acres of forests are on fire in Canada, Russia, and the United States.
The heat wave is sucking moisture from roots and trees, creating a tinderbox in Siberia, usually one of the coldest regions on Earth.
That wind is driving the smoke to the eastern Siberian city of Yakutsk, famous for being the coldest city on Earth.
There is no consensus on what caused the fires. Some are blaming the drought, others are pointing the finger at rising temperatures.
Burning hotter, faster, and more explosive than ever before.
Those flames, coupled with the Canadian wildfires, are blanketing much of the United States with noxious smoke, affecting air quality and triggering health alerts thousands of miles away.
With hillsides ablaze, orange, smoke-filled skies hanging eerily, as so many pockets of the American West burn. More than 80 uncontained large fires are burning in 13 western states. More than 2.5 million acres burned so far this year. That's 720,000 some acres more than this time last year.
Firefighters say what's unfolding here is more than one disaster feeding off another. Historic drought is the perfect fuel for these epic conditions. But it's climate change creating infernos larger than ever, with vortex of smoke powerful enough to spawn their own weather systems. The unimaginable is becoming routine.
We're seeing hot days and heat waves like we've never seen before.
Toxic smoke drifts thousands of miles and chokes the east. The sun tainted red in its soupy haze. Our planet's beauty and its peril in one.
Just shy of 300 wildfires burning, with nearly 2,500 properties on evacuation order.
And with the situation growing more dire by the hour, First Nations leaders are joining the growing calls for the province to declare a state of emergency.
The water's subsiding in western Germany, but overnight, more flooding in other parts of the country. High water in Bavaria, Saxony. In Austria too, towns, cities deluged.
The German Chancellor Angela Merkel has expressed shock at what she called surreal destruction caused by flash flooding on a visit to one of the worst-hit towns.
It's shocking. I'm tempted to say the German language has no words to describe the destruction that's occurred here.
Well, for those of you in the first state, did you feel some shaking this morning? There were plenty of social media posts about the earth shaking in parts of Delaware. Posts mentioned Wilmington, Newark, and the Christiana area. People wondering if there was an earthquake around 11:45 or so. So we went on a search for answers.
It appears it was not an earthquake.
U.S. Geological Survey shared its monthly report on earthquake activity Monday. It says seismologists reported more than 1,000 minor quakes around Yellowstone last month. It is the most quakes reported at the national park since June 2017.
Now, extreme weather is being recorded around the world, from flooding in Europe to wildfires in the US.
Greece, like so much of Europe, is grappling with extreme weather. And as this part of the Mediterranean burns,
Southern Europe's worst heatwave for more than 30 years has fueled fires across parts of Spain, Italy, Greece and Turkey for 3 days now.
In less than a week, more than 100 forest fires have broken out across the country.
on the island of Evia by ancient Olympia, people are fleeing. Wildfires have closed in on these shores, and residents and tourists are being crowded onto ferries and fishing boats, leaving behind the burning island.
In Belgium, heavy rainfall has caused severe flooding less than a fortnight after deadly flash floods across Western Europe.
Fueling devastating wildfires across much of the southern Mediterranean and Eastern Europe tonight. Hundreds of blazes have broken out, many of them multiplying in recent days. Italy, Croatia, Greece, Bulgaria, North Macedonia, and Ukraine are tackling dozens of wildfires.
Extreme temperatures and dry conditions are fueling wildfires in Northern California. Fire is threatening Spain too. This is the Catalonia region and one of the worst fires here in years. There were similar scenes on the Italian island of Sardinia, an out-of-control fire after a heat wave. While no single event can be attributed to climate change,
to be stuck on a beach surrounded by fire on all sides.
It was a waking nightmare from which the sea was the only salvation. They are fleeing from nature at its most ferocious. Wildfires on the Greek island of Evia forced tourists and residents to be rescued by boat from the beaches. Even the outskirts of Athens weren't safe, with thousands leaving their homes to outrun the fast-moving flames.
Firefighters have been working day and night to douse the flames. On the island of Sicily, the fires in the mountains are also threatening seaside resorts.
This year's fire season has been one of the most destructive on record, according to EU data. The extraordinary summer is testing the region's response to increasingly extreme conditions.
There was flooding in London too. Water streamed into a train station and turned roads into rivers as representatives from more than 50 countries met to lay the groundwork for November's big climate summit in Glasgow.
Heavy rain has led to widespread flooding in North Korea, where state TV reports that thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes. Large areas of farmland are underwater, and more than 1,000 homes in the country's east coastal region of Homchi-yong have been destroyed.
Officials in India say more than 160 people have died in the past week due to severe floods and major landslides. Many people have also been reported missing in villages along the country's western coast.
Turkey's also wading in as a major disaster area is declared after weeks of flooding and landslides in its northeastern coastal region.
Wildfires are destroying huge swaths of territory around Europe. Finland has been battling its biggest forest fire in half a century. Heat waves are also causing havoc further south. The worst blazes are raging in southern Turkey, where 6 people have been killed.
So there is a very complex process behind all this.
In the meantime, the impact of fires, floods, extreme heat and drought will continue to be felt. With less than 100 days until the Glasgow summit, these events may just focus minds.
Greece's prime minister says the country is experiencing what he calls a nightmarish summer as a record-breaking heat wave fans dozens.
With temperatures above 100 degrees, more than 100 fires have burned through parts of the country over the last week, forcing evacuations and destroying.
This is what it looked like Thursday night on the road to Canyon Dam in the mountains of Northern California. Everything, trees, cars, homes, and more homes in flames.
Wildfire emergency. California's Dixie Fire exploding again overnight. Now the third largest one.
It took just an hour for these buildings to be incinerated, all from a fire that's now burned for more than 3 weeks, starting small near the town of Paradise. And then growing exponentially this week, it exploded, now becoming the 3rd largest wildfire in California history. Of the state's 7 biggest fires ever, 6 have occurred in the last year.
We're seeing truly frightening fire behavior. We really are in uncharted territory around some of these extreme large fires.
I have never seen a firestorm this bad.
The Dixie Fire in Northern California turning skies red in Lassen County and Susanville. This after the fire demolished the town of Greenville.
We're talking about 2 towns erased from the map in 24 hours.
But he says California's wildfires are creating never-before-seen challenges.
Have they become more dangerous?
Well, over the past 3 years, I think we've all seen it, right? It's just they're getting hotter and faster, and I think the fire moved from that side of town through the town in maybe about an hour, maybe a little less.
Something strange is happening on the North Shore. Officials in Peabody are now trying to get to the bottom of a series of mysterious booms. There have been a couple of earthquakes recorded in and around Peabody in recent weeks. Residents say the quakes, though, don't explain all of the noises.
Wild weather rages around the world. These pictures just a snapshot of what's happened within the last 48 hours alone. Now,
A landmark UN climate report has delivered a confident and frightening verdict.
It's all across our globe. Extreme weather of seemingly biblical proportions, now a painful new normal.
Well, it's been a week of extreme weather conditions and weather-related disasters around.
The UN says this is a code red for humanity, and there is nowhere to hide.
In every region in the world, climate and weather extremes have changed.
As the world reacts to a landmark climate report, Greece is staring down the real-life impacts, facing its worst fire emergency in the country's modern history.
Dusk turns the sky from charcoal to an ominous blood red.
Vehicles tossing in the torrent. This terrifying eyewitness footage captured the scene in northern Turkey just days ago.
The Italian island of Sicily registered 48.8 degrees Celsius on Wednesday, which, if verified, would be the continent's highest temperature ever recorded. The latest heat wave is being caused by an anticyclone nicknamed Lucifer moving up from Africa.
The Earth's climate is getting so hot that in about a decade, temperatures will likely exceed the level of warming that world leaders are trying to prevent.
It feels like there was an explosion underground.
Tracy Valetti fears what'll happen the next time her house rattles.
We all have gas, and, we don't want to see anything, happen to what happened in the Merrimack Valley a while ago.
She and her neighbors keep hearing loud booms underneath their homes on Emerson Street in Peabody. And state emergency management officials tell us that they are now working with city leaders to try to figure out what is causing these noises.
Around the world, fire crews are battling fires tonight on a nearly unprecedented scale. If seeing is believing, many are getting a first-hand look at a worst-case scenario for
Apocalyptic scenes in parts of southern Italy devoured by flames.
More than 2,000 people were forced to flee wildfires ravaging Greece's second largest island, Avia.
The wildfires burning in Russia now are bigger than all the fires raging across the globe combined, bigger than those in the US, Canada, Turkey and Greece put together. This the view as passengers fly into Yakutia, a region 3,000 miles from Moscow.
Turkey is in the grip of a compounding crisis whilst battling some of the biggest wildfires in its history.
Powerful floods are tearing through its Black Sea provinces, ripping down this house. Whoa! Unusually heavy rainfall has caused the chaos. The flash floods a frightening sight when they first rushed in. Dozens of cars have been strewn through the streets or stacked high.
The 8 largest fires in California have all occurred in the past 4 years. Unprecedented 116-degree heat in the Pacific Northwest and all-time record highs in Canada, causing hundreds of deaths earlier this summer. And if it's not record heat and fires, it's flooding. Yet again, Venice's iconic St. Mark's Square covered in water far earlier in the year than normal. It was in Germany just 3 weeks ago, the site of devastating floods after a once-in-1,000-year rainstorm killed at least 160 people.
There's so many people dead. You don't expect people to die in a flood in Germany.
Buildings in this medieval town, around since before the 15th century, were once thought to be able to stand the test of time, now potentially destroyed by one flood.
The signs are all there, with fires raging around the world, in Greece and Turkey and in California. Once in a century, flash floods killed hundreds in Germany, Belgium and China this summer. The climate is getting more hostile, and today the UN said it is already too late to stop some of the devastating impacts of climate change.
All this smoke is a problem far beyond Russia. The fires are releasing record quantities of carbon dioxide. This year, already more than Britain's entire annual CO2 emissions, based on an estimate by a European Union agency.
We are getting a frightening look at this image of Hurricane Ida.
US weather forecasters have warned that the storm approaching Louisiana could be more powerful than Hurricane Katrina. Ida is expected to make landfall in the next few hours.
Ida is coming ashore exactly 16 years to the day after Hurricane Katrina devastated Louisiana.
Oh my God! No!
Short, the destructive winds up to 150 miles an hour.
The wind literally takes your breath away as it howls through here.
He says this is the worst he's ever seen.
Category 4 hurricane made landfall midday near Port Fourchon. 40 people decided to ride out the storm in Grand Isle, defying a mandatory evacuation order. Officials have received multiple calls for rescue.
This is Ida as seen from space. It's a monster.
Well, it is just a few kilometers in terms of top sustained winds of being a Category 5 hurricane, the most powerful on the system used to rate hurricanes. It is blowing ashore now, and it is leveling community after community with that surge and with those unbelievable winds.
Oh, that proof is coming.
All right, everybody, that is just incredible video out of Houma, Louisiana. The eye of the storm hasn't even reached this area.
They say it is the strongest storm to loom over Louisiana in 170 years. And even before Hurricane Ida arrived, you could feel its awesome power.
Chris, 9 people are dead here in New York City from last night's biblical rains and the flash floods they created.
In New York City alone, an entire month's worth of rain came down in just 2 hours.
We are moving into uncharted territory here with climate change. The climate that we've been living in is not going to be the climate that we are living in right now, nor over the next decades.
An intense rainstorm in Spain has led to severe flooding.
Streets were turned to torrents with a powerful stream of water swallowing up cars, furniture and trees.
An intense rainstorm which swept everything in its path, including these cars and these outdoor chairs. The flash floods hit the Spanish town of Alcanar, located about 200 kilometers south of Barcelona, on Wednesday.
It's the latest in a series of major floods across Europe this summer, and scientists warn weather events will continue to become more extreme.
Weather-related disasters has increased 5-fold in the past 50 years. That's according to the World Meteorological Organization. On average, an event linked to weather, climate or water hazard has killed 115 people every day since 1970.
Ida has transformed streets into waterways, trapping some residents in the worst affected parts of Louisiana.
The astonishing and rapidly intensifying power of Hurricane Ida, which slammed into Louisiana just a few days ago, fueled by an unusually warm ocean. And on America's west coast, wildfires burn with increasing ferocity and frequency.
When fires get this hot, this intense, they're very hard to stop. And this fire is headed straight for a Californian beauty spot. Wow! Over the past few days, residents of South Lake Tahoe have looked on in horror as the Calder fire got closer and closer to their homes.
With the death toll still rising in New Orleans after Hurricane Ida struck with its full force on Sunday, and 50,000 people evacuated from parts of Northern California because of a massive forest fire this week, America is feeling the full wrath of extreme climate-related events. A crisis on multiple fronts.
As the tail end of what was Hurricane Ida dumped record-breaking rainfall.
Oh my God. Oh my God. People stuck.
The National Weather Service declared the city's first ever flash flood emergency. Many could hardly believe what they were seeing.
For the first time in recorded history, the National Weather Service issuing a flash flood emergency for all 5 boroughs of New York City. More than 7 inches of rain in just a few hours.
After unprecedented storms left at least 50 people dead.
But it wasn't just the volume of water, it was the speed it came. Highways overwhelmed in minutes. And the railways too. This was the New York City subway, flooding on a level which left people stunned.